Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Novels and Nightcaps, the podcast where we drink, read, and ramble. We are kicking off the year with Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, The Final Empire. Today we're breaking out the world, the magic system, and the first impressions of the story. What worked for us, what surprised us, and why this book has become such a modern fantasy staple. But, as always, before we dive in, Gabe, what are you drinking?
Now, I got to mention this really quick. Did we flip is this like a New Year's thing? Are we flipping we usually say read, drink, and ramble. Are we now saying drink, read, and ramble? Is that but hey, we're rolling with it. New year, new me. But today I am drinking a Moscow Mule. And really the main reason I'm drinking a Moscow Mule is because, as you can see, if you're watching the video, if you can't, it's a copper cup. It's a classic thing for a Moscow Mule. It comes in a copper cup, which, I mean, if you've read Mistborn, which if you're watching this, you are probably somebody who's already read Mistborn, or if you haven't, you're in for a treat because metal plays a significant role. And copper, as we'll talk about, I'm sure a lot, is one of those things that, like hides your allomantic pulses, your powers, at least somewhat to some people. I don't know. I guess we'll figure that out in future books. But I don't know. I was like, I have a cup that is copper, so I figured I would use that. But Nor, what are you drinking?
Very clever, very clever. Yes, and that is exactly why you do the intros and not me, because I always butcher them and you get them flawless.
No,
but
dude, it's great. It was great.
On a similar vein, I picked, I believe it's called like Garibaldi. It has that copper look. It's very citrusy, which is as close to metallic as I think you get taste-wise, aside from, blood or, actual metal.
Actual metal, yeah.
Yeah, but we are not alimenters. We are not drinking and burning our metals. We are just drinking some nice cocktails. So
I do wonder how many people have actually decided to try and swallow metal because of this book.
Well, people used to drink mercury.
That's a good point. Yeah, people did used to drink mercury and then die. So I wonder, is there like a disclaimer anywhere here, like, please do not drink metal?
I feel like if you're smart enough to read Brandon Sanderson,
that's good.
You should be smart enough to know.
You should. No, but there's a difference between being smart and being wise. And I'm not sure.
We're neither of those.
Oh my gosh. What is it? You say Garibaldi? What is it?
Yeah, it is quite simply Campari and orange juice. They say it's better if you get it freshly squeezed, but they say that about any recipe or a food item that has orange juice. I just went to the gas station and I grabbed some Minute Maid. So shout out to Minute Maid.
Shout out.
Let me test it real quick.
Yeah, let's get a little taste test in there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think this is the first time I properly mixed a drink.
Oh, let's go. I like your glass. It's a very fun glass.
I found it in the kitchen.
Oh, you found it in the kitchen. That's brilliant. For those who don't know, for a Moscow Mule, it's super simple. It's 2 ounces of vodka of your choice. We had like a Kirkland vodka that we used, and then it's like ginger beer. I'm sure there's actual measurements. I believe it's 4 ounces technically, but I just kind of fill it to my heart's content. And then there's also specific parameters for your lime, but I'm not about to waste a lime, so I just squeeze the whole lime in there, throw the rest of it. It's delicious. It's a delicious drink. And I love ginger. It clears my body. Does it clear your sinuses? Is that what ginger does? I don't know. It clears something in me. It makes me feel really fresh. So yeah, it's a delicious drink. It's one of my favorite cocktails. And I think I make it like when I have ginger beer, it's one after another. I just churn them out. So we're rocking with a Moscow Mule today. But for those of you, the people who are listening who don't know, which I find would be hard to believe with a book like Mistborn, because it seems like it's one of those stories that everybody seems to recommend, especially for trying to get into fantasy, especially for getting into Brandon Sanderson. But for those who don't know, what is a general rundown of what Mistborn is about?
Yes. So Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, I believe it actually came out 20 years ago. It came out 2006. So it seems appropriate that we're starting the year reading this book. It is at this point, I would say it's pretty famous. It's a classic. I believe it's also the reason why Sanderson got picked to write The Wheel of Time, or like the ending of The Wheel of Time. It's a book based on the premise what if the bad guy won? Like, what if there was a prophecy and there was a hero that was about to fulfill this prophecy and they fail and the bad guy wins? So this world is a world that has been dominated by the Lord Ruler, this tyrannical ruler that is basically immortal. He's basically God. In this world, he is a god emperor, and he's been ruling for 1,000 years now. And then there is a heist crew leader. He has this really crazy plan to basically overthrow the Lord Ruler.
No, I mean, you got it on the nose. It is a heist novel that's not exactly a heist novel. So it kind of pretends to be a heist, yet at the same time, I mean, as you would expect with Brandon Sanderson, the scales just kind of get larger and larger and larger, and it expands into this much bigger event. Main two protagonists that we follow, like our main POV characters, are Kelsier, this older guy, the heist crew leader who has had these powers for a while. He is somebody with a tortured past, to say the least, and Vin, who also has a quite tortured past, who is new into these powers. So as a reader, you kind of get to discover the world with Vin, which is extremely useful, while also seeing a more experienced individual in Kelsier, and their relationship is brilliant because they're together a lot in the book, yet they're both perspective characters, and I think he handles that in a really excellent fashion. And it's an extremely satisfying ending that of course, we will talk about. I would 100% say, honestly, like, I don't know who would we not recommend this to? Because the general standing for a book like this, in my opinion, is people would enjoy it. It would be difficult for somebody not to enjoy it because it's a well-crafted story. The characters are engaging. It's fun. It's exciting. It has twists and turns. It's well made, just in a general sense. And so I have a hard time figuring out who wouldn't like this. But Nor, do you have any idea about, like, who shouldn't read this book?
Shouldn't read this book. Actually, I don't know. This is one of those books that I think is almost like a perfect book in the sense that anyone can read it. It's really accessible. It feels like an action movie, like everybody like an action movie that everybody has seen, Like I'm thinking like Ocean's 11 or Top Gun or what else? Those are the two movies of all time, right? So
Peak action, Top Gun, Ocean's 11. Screw every Marvel movie or like superhero movie. We don't care about any of that crap. Like, oh my gosh, that's really good. Yeah. It's just like Ocean's 11, Top Gun. All right, yeah. We're with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's a book that you can recommend to anyone, I think. Anyone who likes fantasy, anyone who likes complex magic systems, anyone who just likes a good heist or a good adventure, It really fits that like classic story vibe to it in a way that I think anyone and most people will find something to take out of it. Like there's an element of Mistborn for everybody out there, I think.
And I would especially say, like, coming from the both of us who have read Stormlight, there's, extra layers of depth for the Cosmere, because for those of you who don't know, Brandon Sanderson has a connected multiverse sort of situation where a lot of his books are set in kind of the same universe. And so you'll see some parallels, I guess some connection points between the different books. And so if this is your first book, don't worry about it. Just enjoy the book. But if you've read some of his other ones, you'll be able to find interesting, I'm not sure if they're called like Easter eggs. It's more so just facts of the universe that add to your like overall lore, which is really fun. It was very fun to see some of those moments and for them not to be mentioned in the book or like significant in the book, but for me to pocket them away because I knew what it meant. That was really satisfying. So it's definitely worth a read if you have read a bunch of his other stuff and have kind of accidentally somehow passed up on Mistborn. You should definitely go in it. And I mean, that was the case for us. I feel like we just hadn't really touched it. And it's ironic because a lot of people suggest Mistborn as your introduction to his writing, which I honestly think is probably better than what we did. I wish I would have started with Mistborn because it's a really good example of how his stories kind of function. Yet there are some areas that are a little bit more amateurish compared to some of his later works. That, not to say that like detracts from it. It's very good. Not to say that amateur equals bad, but there's some moments that you can see where he improves, such as the prose, for example. But nor overall, kind of like how would you rate this book? Your overall rating? Because I feel like we should probably start with our total, and then we'll break it down in spoiler section.
Yeah, like you said, I wish I had read Mistborn before Stormlight. Stormlight was the first series by Brandon Sanderson that I read. I think it was yours too, was it?
Yeah.
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 So we read. I read all of Stormlight so far. You made it to you read through Oathbringer. You're working your way through Rhythm of War, I hope.
Yes, very slowly. Just like you're working your way through Red Rising, I hope.
Yeah, of course. Very slowly.
Yeah.
I read Elantris a few months ago, which was his first published novel. And so Mistborn is like right after that. It has a lot of really similar themes, and the style is very similar to Elantris. And of course, you still see some of those foundations in Stormlight, only that in Stormlight it's done so much more. I don't know. Not necessarily better, not all of it, but a lot of aspects are a lot better because, he has grown as a writer, the quality has improved, everything's a lot more cohesive, there's a lot more planning that went into Stormlight anyway. I would give Mistborn still a solid 8.35 out of 10. That's the weird number decimal that all my ratings combined gave it. But yeah, a solid 8.3. It's a really great book. I wish I had read it first over Stormlight, just because I've seen the emotional highs of Stormlight, and
Yeah.
at least in this book, the emotional highs aren't really there. I still really enjoyed my time here. I loved the world building, the magic system, the characters, the plot. I thought it was great. The themes are really awesome, but Stormlight just kind of takes it to a whole other level. And so, having been there, Mistborn is not necessarily as impactful as what comes later, which is not a bad thing.
Yes.
I mean, this book by itself, great book, solid story. I am very much excited to see what happens next in this world and where Vin goes. And I want to learn more about Allomancy. It's a really cool system, and I'm just a sucker for alchemy. Even though this isn't like necessarily alchemy, it's very close. It's very similar. Yeah, 8.3.
Yeah.
How about you?
So we were very close on our scores. I gave it an 8.4, so literally just 0.05 above Nor. I similarly I agree. The emotional highs of Stormlight surpass this, yet also it takes a lot more pages. So this is what, 600 pages? And obviously Stormlight is significantly more than that. So what he's able to achieve in this time is a lot of great action set pieces, some strong emotional moments. I would completely agree. You don't reach the highs. And I'm looking forward to see if we do in later books in the trilogy. Because for those who don't know, Mistborn is set into eras. So there are multiple trilogies, and he's currently working on it's called Ghostblood. He's writing the trilogy in its entirety, then publishing it. But this is the first trilogy that we're reading, so I'm interested to see eventually how that works. Like, are they completely standalone? Do you need to read this trilogy in order to understand the next era? I'm interested to see that. But either way, I'm really excited to figure out where the story is going, because I feel like it's the second book where you get the actual meat of the trilogy, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes,
you
I
actually
will
understand
say,
what the trilogy is about.
and I will say that I read the preface for the second book, and he talks about how the second book is the story that he initially wanted to tell. So, I'm excited to see what that means, what that actually entails. But right now we're on Mistborn #1, which I think it's called Mistborn: The Final Empire. That's the
Yeah,
official
Final
title.
Empire. Yes, and before we dive into spoilers, I do want to say that for anybody who's kind of scared about the hard magic system, because I understand that can be kind of intimidating. There's different metals being burned, they do different things, and that very directly impacts the events in the story. And the action scenes are filled with metal getting pushed and pulled, and pewter getting burned to increase your physical ability. All these different things are constantly happening. And for anybody who's like, nervous about that. I would say by the end of the book, you're not thinking about it. It's 100% ingrained because of how much time is spent learning. And that is one of both the strengths and shortcomings of this book is there's a lot of time learning. And I would say that Sanderson does a great job of teaching the reader while teaching Vin. And so if that seems like something that would set you back, it's not like you're sitting there having to understand a math lesson. It doesn't feel like that because it feels urgent within the stakes of the story. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like work, I would say. Granted, though, the first time I saw it, like I even understood what Alametu was, but the first time I read a fight scene, I was like kind of lost. I was very much overwhelmed by what was going on, but it's kind of the cool transformation as a reader, though, from the beginning to the end of the book to see how your understanding of the world has changed. And I find that to be really satisfying. So if you want a satisfying experience like that, 100% check out Mistborn. But if you haven't read it, go read it. We're now going to transition into spoiler talk. So just, spoiler section starting now. It's almost exactly 20 minutes in. That's perfect.
Pretty good.
But okay. Now, I just finished the book like 30 minutes before this. I had a really long drive. I was driving back from Washington, D.C. And so I just finished it. And so I feel quite fresh with these ratings. So I just want to kind of add a disclaimer to all of my ratings here. This is coming off fresh from the book. I've not had time to contemplate. This is all quite, present within me. But still, I mean, we got to start with characters, right? Like that seems like the natural place to start. So I gave characters a 9 out of 10. And I'm going to start by saying it doesn't receive a 10 because I never cried or felt true like heartbreak. And that's significant to me. I think to reach that 10, I have to feel like I have to have physical reactions to what's going on in the story. And I was just not there. I was close. Like I very much, compared to a lot of the books that we read in the last year, this honestly probably, I'm trying to think. I think this is the most attached I felt to the characters in the book so far. I'm trying to think. Compared to anything else we've read for the podcast, this I think is the top for me.
I think that tracks.
Yeah, because I mean, Vin is just such a broken character, but you see her change so much, and it's not like pessimistic, which is good. I don't know. It fits really well, and it's really good. And Kelsier is really good, and this is diving into full spoilers now. I was shocked when Kelsier died, and I found it to be satisfying, because that's Sanderson had a lot of balls killing the protagonist like that, and I respected it so much, and I found it to be such a bold move, and it made the character have so much more meaning than he initially did. He was already great. Like all the characters come to life on the page. They're full of character, yet Kelsier's death, which I guess is kind of plot, but it's more so the fulfillment of his character arc, and seeing how he has been planning this all along was both devastating because I mean, it's suicide, right? Like he knew this was coming. He was committing suicide, yet at the same time he was doing this to plan for a better future, which is so selfless. It's just there's a lot of good complexity here. So yeah, that is the quick rundown of my 9 out of 10 on character. I was very enthusiastic about it, but I did not feel there was the lip where it was a character arc and it didn't become people for me. That kind of stops it from reaching that next level. But Nor, what'd you give it?
I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I think for a lot of the same reasons that you pointed out, the emotional highs aren't there as much as there are in later works. And I know it's not necessarily fair to compare this book to a book that he wrote like 10 years later when Sanderson got significantly better and more experienced as a writer. But still, just like knowing what he eventually does with characters like Kaladin and Dalinar, those character arcs made me cry. Those character arcs made me stand up and like scream and shout and reread the chapter again just to get that feeling. Here, they came really close. Vin is such a great character. I think she is a really well done female protagonist written by a male author. I think that is a bigger challenge than maybe it should be. But Sanderson writes her really well. I found her really compelling. Her flaws, her skill, her past, and her determination, her hot-headedness, awesome. I really enjoyed my time with her and seeing her grow as an Alamancer and as a human being, learning how to trust people again. That was awesome. Kelsier, great character. Instantly adored him.
Yeah.
I love him. I mean, he's so charismatic. He's so cool. And I really did enjoy those scenes where he kind of shows off a little bit and starts kind of dropping like the mystical, almost biblical lore to him. Like
he,
the left.
he becomes a religion. It's so cool. That was so cool. Oh man.
So I enjoyed seeing that. It did not go where I thought it was going to go, which in
Yeah.
retrospect, I should have known because it's Sanderson and he's very hopeful. But I definitely saw his journey through the lens of his crew. As in, like, this is a slippery slope. What is he doing? Why is he doing this?
Why is he trying to become a god to these people?
But then the death scene was so. It just happened. It just happened.
Yeah.
I was reading it and I had to do a double take. I was like, wait, did he
You're
just
like,
die?
wait, his face got slapped off? It was great. I will say the death of the Inquisitor where he chopped his head off was one of the more satisfying deaths I've read in a while, where he hammers him into the carriage and then chops his head off. And that was just really metal. That's a creative way to kill somebody like an Inquisitor. I was really a big fan of it. I don't know. That was with how much had been built up to killing an Inquisitor. When he finally did it, he did a good job of making it mean something. I agree though. I think there's a pretty significant comparison here we should probably make between this and between Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn and how it treats religion and Frank Herbert's Dune, because I you can see how the author impacts the works so directly in these two different books. Because Brandon Sanderson, you see this godlike figure, he dies, right? He's obviously a man and he dies, which in turn allows his spirit to fuel this rebellion, but also allows the reins to be pulled back a bit by the realities of what it means to rule. You have just a very conscious and pure revolution. I think that's the best way to put it. It's quite a clean revolution, all things considered. It is, if everything goes perfectly well and it is a moral revolution, this is what it looks like, which is not realistic 100%, a little bit. But still, it feels so good. It feels good to read. Whereas in Dune, you see what happens if a godlike figure doesn't die and instead continues living, and the dangers in divinity. We obviously see the dangers in divinity also with, the Lord Ruler. That he becomes a god, but then he stays a god as an alive individual, and how that corrupts him and kind of just creates this exhaustion and this carelessness and a lack of empathy that you can 100% look at Kelsier and say he would probably lose his empathy if it wasn't for the people around him rooting him.
And
Ah,
I think, man, and I don't know, you haven't finished Stormlight, so I don't even know how much of this you know.
no, you can't spoil it because other people haven't read it.
I can't even talk about this, but I made a connection to Stormlight, and I don't know. I want to talk about it, but I can't.
You can't. Well, people listening probably haven't even read Stormlight either, so you can't spoil it for them either. Apparently, there's good connections to Stormlight.
There's a lot. There's so many. And those are just the ones that I remember because I gloss over names a lot. But yeah, no, Kelsier and Sanderson's take on, a martyr and a religious figure is very interesting, and it really brings that more hopeful viewpoint and perspective of it, as opposed to, Frank Herbert's Dune, which basically deconstructs the whole, religious messiah mythos in a really interesting way. I mean, those are some of
Yeah,
my favorite books.
me too.
But yeah, but yeah, this is a much more rewarding, much more clean, much more hopeful and ideal way of going about it.
We need to talk about the other characters though, because there's a lot of characters in this book, and at first I was very much not satisfied with the side characters, but as it went on, I mean, obviously it was stupid of me to start the book and be like, I don't like these characters because obviously I didn't know them, it was just dumb. But
All right, then,
as it
who's your
went on,
favorite character?
yeah, okay. I actually was surprised by Ellen for me. Sazed was really good. He is the one that is designed to be the likable character. Like, he is perfectly created to be as likable as possible, and he is. Like, he saves the day. He doesn't really do anything wrong ever, and so like he's obviously designed to be the likable one. But Ellen, to me, was such a like stupid royal guy. Just as an elite, he was such a fun take on elite, and I loved it. I liked how much emotion ruled his action, and I thought it was really really satisfying. And I was really shocked when we got his perspective chapters, and it played well. Like, I liked his. It honestly surprised me because I was my wife had already read Mistborn, and so we were listening to the book in the car, and I would tell her my predictions while we were listening. I would like pause the book and give my predictions. And at first I was like, no, I think Elend is going to be everything that I basically was like, I'm pretty sure that Ellen is going to be everything that Vin fears. I thought he was going to be like, you're a ska, done with you. I was fully convinced, which is my fault. Sanderson would do that to me. So I was like, he's Kelsier is right. Ellen is going to not pan out. And then he surprised me by being a good dude and falling in love with Vin and being like, oh, thank God she's just a thief. And that was so funny, so good. And same thing for Vin. Like, Vin's response to their relationship was really satisfying. Just how much she allowed emotion to rule her actions and do stupid things for love, I thought was great. Like, I'm a sucker for when characters are motivated by their emotions and do dumb things that are not logical, that screw everything up, or at least get close to it. I love that. I love it. It feels like motivated choices, and the characters should have motivations for their choices that are like beyond strategic. And both Vin and Ellen played that really well. And I think that we'll see if Ellen becomes a lame character or if he continues to grow. But he was just a fun. Like, I was excited when he was on the page. Not because I felt like if he would have died, I would have been like, oh man. But but I enjoyed how he was written. In a very basic sense as a side character. But what did you think? Who's your favorite character? Yeah, and that reveal, bro.
Goes on this quest. He infiltrates the Inquisitors, which the Inquisitors are so cool in how intimidating and like ruthless they actually felt. I mean, the aftermath of any scene involving the Inquisitors was visceral.
Brutal.
There was a lot of gore, a lot of blood. Even that scene where you think that Marche has been found out and killed, there's so much blood going on in there. And the point of view chapter with the Inquisitor was also very interesting.
That was the last chapter before the epilogue. It like started with this perspective. That was so cool.
And connection to Stormlight, which I don't even think you've read, but very cool stuff that happened there. But I'm talking a lot about the Inquisitor, even though my favorite character is Marsh.
But he became an Inquisitor, so it is okay.
I am really excited.
Yeah, did that surprise you? I mean, it surprised me. I fully was like content with like, yeah, he's dead. He's dead. Okay. Like, it made complete sense. I bought it. I did not anticipate him being an Inquisitor, but it made total sense. It like completely logical. I should have seen it coming. And it was like, it felt like a satisfying way for him to save the day without it feeling like, I didn't sense the writer in the room when that happened. Like, it felt like a natural narrative progression, which is the best way a twist can go.
Exactly. Yeah, the twist was so well done. I didn't really see it coming at all. I totally thought he was done for. And the way he saved the day felt earned because he paid a heavy price for it. I mean, he became
Yeah.
an Inquisitor. He has
He has the
spikes coming.
nails through his...
It's so
Wait,
cool.
did you look up photos of Inquisitors? I
No,
was looking at
no.
photos.
I just pictured it.
You know, because
But
I was like trying to figure it out. I thought the spikes were coming like out of their eyes, but it's the other way around. It looks like a nail is driven through their eyeballs. So they have like a big, like the face of the nail is where their eyes are, and the spikes are coming out the back.
interesting. Yeah, I'm looking it up right
Because
now.
that's
That
how,
is
yeah,
not what I pictured.
because that's how he, like whenever Kelsier was killing his Inquisitor, he nailed him to the carriage using the spikes that come out the back of his head, which is just...
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
that is
I
not what I
thought the
pictured at
descriptions
all.
of the Inquisitors, but it's so tough. It's so tough looking.
So cool.
No, yeah, I like that. I also was surprised by Hammond. Like Ham. I really liked his character as well, as this like general, this soldier, this guy who is like this thug, yet is also not what you picture whenever you say the word thug. You know, he truly cares about people and wears his heart on his sleeve and was a general. I just was like, I can see his character getting better and better. I'm hoping he becomes more of a central character in the next book, because I really, really enjoyed how Vin was able to learn from Ham. I don't know. It just felt like such a wholesome time for him to explain why he can't be close to his family was sad. And then him like agree. I don't know. I liked him a lot. And then Breeze was fun. But again, not much heart there. We didn't get too much of Breeze. Overall, though, I was genuinely surprised by how much we were able to get from all of the different crew members in total, because it seemed like there wasn't enough time for it, even though it's 600 pages. I felt like there wasn't enough time, but I felt like we were able to get a good amount of conversation between Vin and Kelsier and a lot of the other crew members. And then we have, what's his name? Yeden, Yeden, that guy.
Yeah.
What do we think of him?
I thought he fit the role that he was supposed to play. He frustrated me a lot,
Yeah.
but I think he was supposed to, just because of the choices he made. Like, feeling really empowered by Kelsier, and when he says, "Lord Kelsier, I didn't realize that you could power us even if you weren't there," and that's what motivates him, that encourages him to like try to start the rebellion earlier. That frustrated me so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But
it was
completely
so dumb.
Understandable. And that's another thing Sanderson does really well, and you already mentioned it, how these characters are really ruled by emotion a lot of the times, and that makes them feel a lot more real than just words on a page. It's this idea, that a character arc doesn't necessarily keep moving forward continuously. Sometimes you take one step forward, two steps back, and then three forward, and you're back in the same place. You backtrack a little, you make mistakes, you make dumb choices based on emotion, because you're growing in one area, but then the plot, kind of backtracks a little because of that. And I thought that was really well done. It is sort of the price that Kelsier was willing to pay in becoming this martyr figure. It makes sense. It fits Yeden's character arc, from mistrusting and being skeptical to, finally having that hope and courage, even
Stupid believer.
Stupid.
I mean, this naturally
Yeah.
gets us to plot, because we're kind of talking like a little bit about plot here, and motivation, of course, with it. And also we spent 20 minutes on characters, so should we probably cover some other things? Yeah, plot. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really solid. The areas where I didn't like it as much are, which, to be clear, like for those who haven't listened to us talk about books before, we tend to be kind of harsh, and our total score is a weighted combination of all of our different scores, where like character, plot are the most important. They weigh the most in the overall score. I believe they're like 30% of the score, whereas world
Yes.
style and impact are slightly less, just because I feel like that kind of makes sense. If the style isn't great, but the characters really, really matter to us, the style shouldn't weigh as much as the characters. So that's kind of how we base our ratings. And so 8 out of 10 though is a really good score compared to what we've given some other stuff here. But there was a few things missing for me. Most of it just had to do with the scale of what was going on. I wished I got to get some of the other elements. Some things felt too easy. Some things felt really difficult. And of course, we are seeing from the eyes of Vin and Kelsier, so obviously what they are directly working on seems like the most important. Yet I think we missed out on some other portions, specifically with like the army and with the idea of a rebellion. Not that it was like necessarily rushed, but it did feel kind of taken for granted a little bit. Like it was like, we don't have an army. Ah, well, Kelsier dies in the square, and then all of a sudden we have an army. And it's like it was satisfying. Like I didn't dislike it. It was just really fast. And I don't know. That was one area, just their entire plan, because it was framed as a heist, but a heist never happened. It made me wish I was able to get more of those other elements of the heist, or perhaps some of the other characters in the heist situation of what's going on. And I suspect we'll get a bit more from their side in later books, but it just often seemed like if somebody else was doing something, it was kind of a guaranteed success unless it was Eden. If Eden was doing something, it was probably a failure. But like the rest of them, a lot of times they succeeded in what they were doing unless Vin was with them, in which case something would go wrong. So like, I don't know. I just kind of, that frustrated me a little bit, but not very much. And then finally, my final gripe. I I hope there's an explanation for this, but it still bugged me. In the end, whenever Vin is fighting the Lord Ruler, he mentions that he's like, I've been chopped up, I've been flayed, I've been killed in X and Y manner. And then if she, of course, realizes, which I called, ask my wife, I was like, I don't think he's a god. I think, what if he's like both an Allomancer and the other type, which I don't remember the name of. Like he's both of these magic systems. Like he just can do both. And I was totally right, and I was so satisfied by the prediction. But I was a bit like confused as to, if he gets dismembered, he's gonna lose his bracelets. Like, how would he be alive? I don't know. Maybe there's an explanation for that. It just didn't make sense to me in the moment. I'm sure there's some lore explanation, especially in book 2. Or he could have been lying, which it like 100%, he could just be trying to create this facade. But I would have liked at least Vin to question that. That would have been at least satisfying to me. That's very minor. But still, 8 out of 10 is great.
I wonder. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that too much because I assumed that he did something at the Well of Ascension that I can't really talk about because I've already read the other Stormlight books that I think comes into play here as well. But because
I
there
think I
is
might
there is
know. I have a
there is the
suspicion.
word. I was looking for it earlier today. I was like flipping through the last pages of the book looking for the word. I can't find it anymore. It starts with a P. I don't remember if it was capitalized in this book, but it's capitalized in When Truth because of story. But anyway, I think you can guess where I'm going with this, but I also
Yeah.
can't remember when it was introduced, so
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
even going to talk about it.
I've had some spoilers before. I'm not going to say it here because, we'll talk about it when it comes up in the books. Because for those who haven't figured it out already, yeah, we're just gonna crush the trilogy. That's the first 3 books we're gonna read this year. We're just gonna go through the trilogy here, because we've never read it, and it seems like we need to. It is one of the classics, and I mean, nor as you said, it's the 10-year anniversary for Mistborn, and we are missing out if we don't celebrate the 10-year anniversary by reading all of the Brandon Sanderson Mistborn.
Hero of Ages. I gotta say the diary entries were so good, so good.
So I'm gonna like admit I'm kind of a loser, and often will glaze over epitaphs. Like whenever I don't know, my eyes glaze over a lot, and I see it, and then I go, okay, that's really long, and then I skip it and keep reading. But then I realized how important they were, and so I went and then read all the epitaphs because I was like, oh wait, this is actually like part of the story. Like this is significant. I mean, as you know, I feel like epitaphs are often like they add to it. They're not important usually. Usually it's like a cute quote or here's a nice little addition, some lore drop. No, but this was like actually important to the story, and it really built what was going on. And I thought that was super. Wait, did you? Anyways, you need to give what you gave plot. I don't think you've given that yet.
No,
I rated it
haven't.
8 out of 10. What did you give it? What did you give it?
I gave it a little bit higher than that. I gave it an 8.5. Have some very similar gripes. I think overall, great story. It has a lot of similarities to Elantris, for better or for worse. There's some things that Elantris does better. There's some things that Mistborn does better, of course. One of the things that I didn't get to talk with characters was how, like, the crew was very similar to the crew in Elantris, except in Elantris, they are noblemen. So I saw way too many similarities. The characters didn't quite affect me as much in this one because I've had already read a story with them. Yeah. But he writes them so well that you just really want to be in the room with them. And anyway, that's characters. Plot. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really much of a heist story. The heist happened in Kelsier's past, and there
Yeah,
wasn't really much of a heist.
I yeah, I that is a good point. I've been sold this book as a heist story.
Yeah,
It's like
everybody keeps
heist
telling
with
it's a heist.
magic metals. And it's not. It's not at all.
It's
I
not a
don't
heist.
it's not even kind of. And yeah, that was I didn't not that it was disappointing. Like it was I was expecting a heist, got something really good, but it was 100% like a rebellion story. It was like an uprising story, not a heist story. And even when it was trying to be phrased as a heist story, where it's all about money or whatever, it still never was about money. Like it never felt like it was
Like
truly
it.
about money. You
Yeah, it
never
always
had
felt like.
characters dreaming about what they were going to purchase with the money. Like that was never, you know, it just wasn't relevant. They were perfectly well off the whole time while they were part of the heist team. I don't know.
Yeah, it was never about the money. And even Vin didn't seem to care about the money. She seemed to care about, sticking with this group, seeing
Yeah.
if it ends up like every other crew she's ever been in, or if it's going to be something else. I thought that aspect of the story was really well done. The whole trust and betrayal, and Reen's voice in her head telling her, like, everybody's going to betray you. I betrayed you, even though he didn't, which I thought was a really nice reveal. I agree with you, though. I think there were aspects of the heist elements of it that I wish we could have seen more of. We got a lot of her joining the nobleman, and I wasn't necessarily interested in that because, again, I read that in Elantris. One of the protagonists
Okay.
is new to this kingdom, and she's not infiltrating, but she's joining the society and also learning secrets through like acting and putting on the mask. And then there's also similarities between Vin and Shallan, eventually in Stormlight, with like,
Yeah.
who am I? Am I Vin or am I Valette? Which, I mean, great character arc. But yeah, I wish we could have seen more. I really enjoyed the fight scenes, the rebellion aspects. I wish we could have seen more of that. The action sequences were so well done, so cool.
So
Elements is
good.
just such a cool
So
system.
good.
And the
Yeah, it was
final
so good.
battle, the final battle was amazing. I mean, it kind of bleeds nicely into like world building and the magic system. But the final fight, when she tries to kill the Lord Ruler through these various like tactics, and the whole time I was like, "Oh, this is gonna work. This is the one." She slices through the past self.
I called that. So, oh my gosh, that was so satisfying. So I was talking to Laura and I was like, what if, so I paused it. This is like well before that. It was like after she discovered burning gold, after she did that. And we were sitting there trying to figure out like how you kill him. And I like paused it. I'm like, what if this was okay? Sorry. I was remembering the moment I predicted this. It was whenever she burned the like, what, the 11th element, whatever, the new one, and she saw the different versions. That's when I said, what if she kills one of the older versions? Does that kill the original guy? And Laura's like, I don't understand. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm stupid. And
Yeah.
then she tried it, and that was so satisfying. Not only because I felt like I got to feel smart, like along with Vin, like we were on the same page, which is really satisfying, as a way to connect to the character. But it also didn't work, which was also really satisfying because it meant I wasn't smarter than Brandon Sanderson. That's great. Like I love to be surprised. And you're right though. It was so fun to see her problem solve. I never,
Like,
I don't know. Was it
like we
intense? I think that's a good word. Like, was it
it
intense? It
it
felt
reminded me. It reminded me a lot of Infinity War, where like the Avengers are fighting Thanos, and Thanos just kind of like carelessly like takes them all down because he's so powerful. It's like, how do you defeat this guy? And it makes sense, like he's been a ruler for 1,000 years. He's been a ruler for 1,000 years for a reason. So the fight was really awesome. And I don't think we've talked about the Lord Ruler enough as a character.
yeah.
This is a character that we get a lot of the Lord Ruler through his absence and the way he is a shadow in this world. Like, he looms over the world. He is God. They curse by his name. They're trying to kill God in this society, in this world. Again, I'm going back to I'm kind of jumping between points, but the journal entries were
Yeah.
one of my favorite aspects of the story, because yes, this book was sold to me under the premise of it's a heist story. It was also sold to me under the premise of, what if the chosen one failed and the bad guy won? And so you're reading these entries and it feels very classic and very like,
Like Lord of the Rings is how it felt. It
it,
felt like Frodo.
exactly.
Frodo kept a journal.
It's a quest, and you see like, oh, I've been chosen. I have my doubts, but they say I'm the chosen one. And he has all these doubts and uncertainties, and then there's the mention of this terrace man, Rashek, I think is his name.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I did not,
Rashek, yeah.
yeah, I did not make that connection. I was like, oh, what
No,
happened in this mountain or in this pit or
me too.
whatever that
Yeah.
that made him this tyrant? And then the way the last journal entry in the epilogue gave me chills. And it's been a
Yeah.
while since I've read one that gave me chills, because he's like, even after all this time, whatever happens, I know that if I fail, that just means that someone else is going to succeed. That sold me for the rest of the trilogy. I was like, I need to know what happens next. So,
Yeah.
really well
It was
done.
so cool. I mean, also I think it's really cool because we see a different Terraceman. We see Sayzed be such a good guy, and to see that like contrasted with Rashek, the Terraceman who, killed the like actual hero
Hero.
and then became evil was like it was a great reveal. Absolutely great reveal. I did not see it coming, but then again, with like the perfect reveal is something that when it said, you go, oh, like you have the revelation.
It clicks. So
Perfect.
when it clicks, satisfying. And
Very satisfying.
Sanderson does that really, really well.
Absolutely. It was great. And I completely agree. And I like kept thinking about how we didn't get to see the Lord Ruler till so late. And it was really good. Like we got to see his carriage.
Super
We got
satisfying.
we got to feel him before we saw him. Really cool. And
And
I also
like,
really like how like the Lord Ruler's actions directly impacted the decisions that Viss was able to make and the connections she was able to make. Like whenever her earring gets ripped out, and that's when she realizes, oh, if I can do X, I can probably do Y. Like that was really like it's just good motivated character decisions that doesn't make it feel like she discovers quote a new power. It's like no, she's had this power and she just obviously didn't know. But like I don't know. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel cheap, I think is the right word. Didn't feel cheap. It felt very
exactly.
deserved.
Which is yet another thing that Sanderson does really well. But his magic systems, they feel more like science, in the
Yeah.
sense that, there are set rules. Maybe they're not well understood. Maybe they're vague. Maybe they're incomplete. But there are rules. It's like physics. The laws exist. The laws of physics. The gravity is a thing that you have to deal with, but it can be manipulated in certain scenarios, or it's different in certain scenarios. Same here. The applications of the system does require thinking. It does require thinking. It's not just like, conveniently. It doesn't conveniently happen. So when
Mm-hmm.
when when the characters figure something else out, or a different way of using their powers, it feels earned and it feels satisfying,
Which
which
is
he
World,
does
right? So what do you give World?
exactly, which is why I give World a 9 out of 10. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Beautiful. What did you give
Yeah, I mean,
World?
I give it a 9 out of 5, a 9.5 out of 10. Um, Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I think the world was probably my favorite element, and it was like the perfect amount where I never felt overwhelmed about the world, to be honest. Like the actual world itself never overwhelmed me, which is rare for Sanderson, I feel. Like I felt overwhelmed well into Oathbringer. I was you're constantly having to catch up to what's going on. I mean, like the scale, right? And sure, there are mentions to different areas, but you're so grounded in one city here and some of the little, like, plantations outside of the city that you get to know it quite well. And you get to know the magic system quite well. And the magic system is probably my favorite out of any book. I, when writing, I don't prefer writing hard magic, yet when reading, I if it's done well, it's so satisfying. It's just so satisfying. And I think that's the best way to describe it is he created a world that set itself up to be extremely satisfying if the writer can handle it. And obviously Sanderson can. And this definitely sounds like just a glaze fest for Sanderson, but to be fair, this is kind of like a classic in the fantasy realm. So, I mean, it deserves its flowers. And so, yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot more to discover at this world, and I'm sure that book 2, from the like little bits I've seen of it, is going to connect a lot more to the Cosmere compared to book 1. I saw obviously like a few things, especially what's his name? There's the storyteller guy. He was in
Hoyd was in
Hoyd
there.
was in here. I know, it was so funny. I was like, Hoyd? It was so random because I'm so used to I don't think this is really a spoiler. In Stormlight, Hoyd is much more of a storyteller, like literally tells stories, and we didn't really get like that, not fourth wall break, but that direct of a kind of mythical figure within the first book of Mistborn. And so I'm interested to see if he pops up again and if there is a more mythical stance taken later. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because right now he just plays the role of an informant, and
Yeah,
you don't really think too much about it. And assuming this is your first book, you're not gonna think twice of him. You're not even gonna remember him. He's quite
you
forgettable in
should though.
this
You should
book.
remember him
But
though.
now that we've talked about it, I remember the name Hoyd. Um, Great character, really fun. I think canonically he doesn't like Kelsier. I read on Reddit, which I think is really funny because of
It's really funny.
the actions, which goes back to the Lord Ruler's final words. The whole "you fools." Like I was preventing this. I'm assuming it's the deepness from spreading, whatever the deepness
Yeah.
is, and even Vin takes notice of it. Is like he was using the present tense, like what I do for you, not what I did for you. So he was either, he was holding something back, which, I'm sure we're gonna find out soon enough. My
Yeah,
only my
for
only
sure.
regret is that and I could be way off, but after reading Stormlight, I think I know what awaits in the Well of Ascension.
Yeah.
But again, I could be way off. So I'm excited to keep reading.
I feel like you're probably not going to be way off, but we'll see. I'm excited to hear what you discover.
But I will not tell you if I called it or not because I don't want to spoil.
I feel like you'll spoil it a little bit. I feel like I'll get a sense if you'll be like, ha, 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 I'm not gonna tell you if I called it. Then you probably called it. Anyways, but we both gave style the same. This was the weakest part, which is not surprising. I feel for those who have read Sanderson, his prose is fine usually. Like it's rarely a highlight of the story. I wouldn't say it's particularly awful ever. It's not like awful, but it's not usually the highlight. It doesn't stand in the way. I would say that. And Mistborn, I felt very similar. It at times felt more amateurish than some of his later works. In particular, at the beginning of the book with a lot of the dialogue, it felt kind of wooden to me. It warmed up, I thought, as the book went on. Like it got warmer and more full just because characters had built relationships and had a reason to speak to one another. But at first, it just felt very kind of, I don't know,
Yeah,
tacky. That was my main gripe though. It wasn't even the descriptions of things typically. It was mostly the dialogue at the beginning of the book felt stunted. But
I mean, we talked about this, and I also gave Style a 7.5/10. The beginning of the book specifically, it feels like the dialogue is very similar to like a play where like the characters are like explaining things. There's a term for it which I'm blanking on right now, but it's like a thing in place where like the dialogue serves to like catch readers up to speed, and it feels like the dialogue at the beginning of the book felt like that. It's like, "Oh, dear Kelsier, you're still this like really cheerful guy. Clearly, the pits haven't changed you." Yeah, well,
Yeah.
after you spend a few years in the pits, you learn to be optimistic. It's like, okay, well, okay, I get it. You were in the pits, and you are an optimistic guy. Which again, it does get better as it goes, but a lot
Yeah.
of the internal dialogue was really direct.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Very much so. And like this at times, this is kind of funny. This is a little so I wrote a book. It's releasing February 1st, Sebastian, go check it out. Sick. But it was the first book I wrote, right? It's my debut novel, and I'm about to finish a different book, right? Different book. Wrote some other stuff in between, but about to finish my second book. And one thing that really strikes me is how direct my internal, like the actual internal monologue was during my first book. And I found something, not to say that I'm even kind of close to Brandon Sanderson, not even kind of, but I definitely noticed, I was like, that's something that I'm pretty sure I wrote that exact line in my I'm learning to trust people. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was really funny. You're totally right, though. The internal monologue seems to be quite direct and sometimes lacks nuance, which, to be fair, I mean, it's not like it detracts, but it prevents some really deep emotions from arising. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like, am I going to cry if Vin is like, finally, I trust someone, but now they betrayed me? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wonder how the emotional high of the story will compare to, his other works. Because again, Kaladin to me is like a 10 out of 10 character. Dalinar is a 10 out of 10 character. Even Shallan, eventually near the end, she didn't quite reach 10 out of 10 for me, but she
Yeah,
is,
7.75. Yeah. Sorry.
I wonder if we'll get that same feeling with these characters. But
Yeah. Well, can't with Kelsier. Kelsier's dead. I do wonder if they're gonna bring him back somehow. Not like fully. I wonder if it's gonna be. I don't know. Whenever I've heard about Mistborn, Kelsier is such a focus that it makes it hard for me to believe that he's like truly gone in the first book. And I'm not saying I don't know, like a Force Ghost situation. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I have a difficult time buying that Kelsier is completely out of the story now. I hope I don't know. I hope he is. Um, I do hope he is, but at the same time, like I'm not. There's more there. I bet there's more to be done. I don't know. That's just the vibe I get. The vibe I get from how people talk about these books. It leads me to like believe that Kelsier cannot be fully gone from the story. And that naturally leads us to impact, right? What did we feel out of the story? And we both gave it the same score. We both gave the same score. We both gave it an 8 out of 10. Which is a very good score. I definitely felt emotions reading this book. I didn't cry. I didn't want to cry. I didn't jump for joy. I did at times go, that's sick. Like I did do that. I did go, that's a great reveal. I did that as well. But I never wanted to go cuddle up with the blankets in the bed because of how Brandon Sanderson hurt me. So, Nor, what was your general takeaway from Impact?
yeah, no, I briefly talked about it with the like epilogue journal entry, and I think again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Stormlight, but it doesn't quite impact me the way those books did. And it's a 8 out of 10 is still a pretty good score. I think the reveals were done really well. The twists were really cool. Like, I didn't really see many of them coming. I don't think I saw any of them coming. The themes of hope and trust and, like this tyrannical ruler, it was thought provoking at times. I feel like it wasn't as fleshed out or like as impactful as it could have been. And I'm sure we're going to see more of that as the story goes. I don't necessarily think it's going to be as impactful as I might hope for.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I didn't cry over any characters, but it did get me really excited to keep going. And I can see how, for someone who hasn't read any of his other books, for someone who maybe hasn't even read fantasy, someone reading this book for the first time, knowing nothing about it, knowing not much about Sanderson or fantasy or anything like that, I can see how for them this book would be very impactful near the end, but I don't think it would be anything upward of a 9, maybe even an 8.5, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is the one that should be like easiest to adapt to either film or like television. To me, it seems very clean. Like it has its clear emotional beats that you could hammer home, and perhaps a really good cast acting it could make the impact even higher, like on screen compared to on the page. I do wonder how that kind of thing would impact it, because if you have a stellar actress playing Vin really selling these things, how does that change it? Because the plot I think sets up for these emotional beats, but on the like philosophical side of impact, I agree they don't really flesh out a lot of the stuff. It seems really clear cut. Oppression, this guy, Lord Ruler bad. Which I get, obviously. Like it's supposed to be, yeah, the guy who claims to be God is not God. He is actually a bad guy. That seems pretty clear. I do hope in this next book, though, they play around with this question of oppression in society. Like, can you have a society without oppression? And the real answer is probably not. It's not really realistic to have. I wish it was, but I mean, I think there's always going to be somebody on bottom that feels like they shouldn't be on the bottom, especially in what I assume the type of society that they're going to build. The only question is who is on the bottom? Is it still the ska? Are they still, working the plantations? Who's doing that? And how do they feel about it? Are they earning a wage? Is that what's happening now? I'm really interested to see how it shapes up, how they build a government, the problems that arise from it, and how Sanderson treats that. Because being such an optimistic writer, I feel like he would be very hesitant to say society's broken, there's no fixing it. That doesn't seem like a conclusion he would make. So I'm really interested to see where he goes. But I think my favorite like line in the book was basically anything with Sazed. Like his wisdom was the most impactful for me, and especially his thoughts on faith. And he's like, faith means nothing if it goes away whenever it fails. I was like, that's great. That's like that was such a killer line. In general, Sazed's treatment of religion was really interesting, and I don't think I've seen that sort of character in any story. Like a character who collects knowledge like this, specifically regarding religion, and I don't know, just the idea of a guy being like, let me help you find a religion that fits you is such a niche thing because of how many people in so many stories, their identities are so tied to one religion. For somebody to be like, let's find the one that fits you best, it's a really like funny sort of concept. But the questions and conversations that arise because of that, I think were some of my favorite conversations in the whole book. I don't know. What did you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, he was a great character. I mean, I I was really tempted to like highlight every line of dialogue that he dropped because he was so insightful. I kept thinking that he was gonna be wit for some reason, because of all the like actual like knowledge he had, even though the
Wit
personality
is
is
Hoyd, for
completely
those who don't know.
different.
Wit and Hoyd are the same person.
Sorry, guys. Yes,
Sorry. So, spoiler alert, Nor.
my
Yeah,
mild,
Hoyd is Wit, Wit is
mild
Hoyd.
Stormlight spoiler.
It's fine.
It's like
Yeah.
an Easter egg. But yes, Hoyd. Really insightful. I mean, I really enjoyed reading all the snippets of like these lost religions, and it really helped flesh out the world a lot more. And then it finally clicked, that there was like another purpose behind it. Because Kelsier was trying to look for reasons or like trying to understand like what makes a martyr, what makes a religion so powerful, even though, maybe it shouldn't be, or like even when there's this dominant religion that is not even religion, just empire that is the Lord Ruler. His presence is so great. The themes of hope, I think Sanderson always nails.
Yeah.
I guess as you were talking about the ska, it made me realize once again how similar this book really is to Elantris, because a big part of that story is a king trying to build up a society of people who have been cast aside and left to die and wither. And so these essentially this population of oppressed individuals trying to like, gain that hope once again, that vitality and that will to continue living and maybe even stand up for themselves, which I think is just overall something that Sanderson is drawn
Mm-hmm.
to. But he does it, actually, I think he does it better in Elantris just because that is the focus of the story. Here, it feels like it could have been the focus of the story, but we didn't get a lot of time with the rebellion itself, which, left something to be desired.
So, was there a religion that stood out to you? Because they dropped quite a few religions.
They did.
I immediately like the scene that stood out to me regarding like religious talking was the one where basically he was like, I'm feeling kind of weird. Can you tell me a religion? Like, can you tell me about that one religion? He's like, no, 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 not that one, not that one. Yeah, that one. That was such a, I think in context now, thinking back on it, knowing that he's basically going to kill himself fighting the, the Lord. It adds a lot more meaning to that scene. And that I think goes to the credit of its impact is in retrospect, a lot of these scenes have so much more weight than you initially realized. But yeah, did you have any religions that stood out in particular?
Yeah, my favorite religion will probably not come as a surprise to you. It's the one based on like sea traveling. Look, like, like I'm writing a book that predominantly features pirates in the sea, and I thought that was a great religion. It's so cool, that like they build their mythos and their religion through exploration, and they kept all their records and all their religion on the boats, not in the land. They just kept exploring, and I thought that one was pretty cool.
I had a different one actually. I was expecting us to have the same one, but that makes complete sense why you would like the exploration one. I really liked the one with the stars being comforting, like all the watchful eyes of the god, and the sun being actually the jealous one that they don't like. That one was so cool. Like finding comfort in the nighttime, finding comfort in the darkness, because that's where the most eyes can see you, compared to the one jealous eye.
Which,
I thought that was really cool. It was such a like fun. It was perfect. It just was unique. I just like, I don't know. That made me smile. And I mean, I haven't looked it up since. Like I just remembered that because it was that interesting, that original.
yeah, that one was also really. I mean, all of them were so cool, but yeah, I kept hoping to read more about those religions, and it kind of hurts
Which
me
is good.
that they are lost religions. But yeah,
Yeah.
it really fleshes out the world. The amount of things that were lost in this world really, really impactful. The red sun, that this is like a planet in a system that is so late into its life cycle because the sun is red.
I didn't
That
even
comes
catch
that
that.
comes
I
to
didn't
the
even like put that together. That's really funny. Yeah, that's really funny.
that comes at
I
a
didn't even, yeah,
much
I didn't
later
realize.
stage.
Yeah,
All this
that's
talk of like flowers being really pretty and green. Actually, no, the mention of flowers at all, because they don't have flowers in the society anymore.
yeah.
Like the idea that these plants grow flowers and that the trees were green at some point, and how it's
Like,
so weird to them.
what do you mean
That
it
doesn't make
smelled?
sense.
Yeah.
Which, he does that also really well in Stormlight, like with the plant life in that world, Roshar. But yeah, Sanderson's just really good at world building. It's impressive.
Yeah. It's really good. And honestly, I think that's a good way to sum this book up. It's really good, guys.
It's really good.
Our subjective rating, where we kind of go from like ebook all the way to collector's edition, and I mean, you can fill in the blanks in the middle. It's completely subjective scale. It's not a scale. It's not even a scale. It's a collage. It's a collage
It's like a
of
lot.
what we think is the right experience for this book. I felt hardcover. It's a classic
Hardcover.
hardcover. This is something that it's like a very classic story, and it could obviously change depending on how the trilogy goes. As with most trilogies, right? If the first book is great and the last two books suck, it's going to make it, maybe it should stay hardcover. But if it's like golden all the way through, I'm going to want me a collector's edition. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it leads. But definitely a hardcover book for me. And you said the same, right? Also a
Yeah,
hardcover.
I
And
think the best way to describe it is like a tentative hardcover, you know?
Mm.
Like, could
Tentative
be a
hardcover
collector's
is good.
edition. Could be a
And
collector's
we both have
edition.
the mass market paperback editions. Like,
Hey,
and
I
mine
got
has
it for
been previously
$10.
read. Yeah, no, mine's been previously read and is missing the first 30 pages. I had to I have them separated and I had to read them, actually order them up by page number and then read it one page at a time, loose leaf style, in order to get the prologue of the book. So I was really dedicated to this. But yeah, I would like an upgrade. A hardcover would be great. So we give it a hardcover. I mean, Nord, did you finish your drink?
I did.
You did? You're getting so much better at that, at finishing a drink. And I as well finished my drink because here at Novels and Nightcaps, we finished our drinks. Everybody have a good night.